Don, thank you so much for joining us. As we start, can you talk a little bit about your current role and what's...
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Misha. Yeah, so my current role is Chief Information Security Officer for Germantown Technologies. It's based in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's a little bit of a unique organization. We're actually owned by a healthcare investment firm, and they created Germantown Technologies to support the new concept, or what we call a portfolio companies that are started by our parent company. And we're typically, or most of the companies are in the healthcare space, healthcare services, some health tech, and some industries tangent to healthcare. So it's dealing with, PHI, PII, regulated information, and we're charged with standing up the security program, creating the security strategy, and then actually doing security operations and risk management for a period of time until that portfolio company is ready to build and maintain that program on their own.
I see. I understand. Awesome. So I think it paints puts the dot on the arc of your career. But can you talk a little bit? How did you get into cybersecurity? What were some of the first roles that you took in that area?
Sure. Yeah, so I started on the IT administration side. So I've been doing IT management for a number of years, 25 plus, I guess, at this point, probably longer than that. And had an opportunity when I was working at a managed service provider, actually servicing primarily financial institutions, so community banks. And I was, still doing server administration, IT administration, had an opportunity to work with one of our other business units that was targeted toward IT risk management activities, but also penetration testing activities. And so that was kind of my first opportunity. I had a director in that group that had said, hey, do you want to learn security, learn what we do over here in security and risk management? Sure, why not? Always open to learning something. And so kind of went over to that side of the business. Actually, I was doing kind of both areas, but had an opportunity and actually started doing pen testing, or I guess my first real assignment was social engineering. So it was kind of a deep dive into that side of it. I think the most exciting part is the physical social engineering piece of it, trying to break into banks, going, places that we weren't supposed to be in, get behind teller lines, get into the back office, get connected to a network, in a conference room, see what we could find. Always gets the heart racing. We would dress up as, AT&T or workers or some other telecom worker, create fake badges, lots of fun. So that's kind of how I got started. And in that area, not only did we do, penetration testing, but we would do IT risk management activities, business continuity planning, IT risk assessments, policies and procedures, some of the not so glamorous side of security, but definitely necessary. And so yeah, that was my start. Probably, I don't know, what was that, 12, 13, 14 years ago at this point?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Physical social engineering. That sounds interesting. I imagine you probably have stories to tell, but when you go in, do you have like a get out of jail card in your pocket saying, hey, we're hired by your boss, so this is a test, it's not real, don't...
Yeah, always have that in your back pocket for sure. There were always one or two people that would know that we're in the bank, that we were authorized to do that. Never really ran into trouble. Never had the cops called on me. We never got to that point, but certainly folks would, where we did get caught, we would have to give it up and tell them to call so-and-so to verify our story. But yeah, several examples and stories of actually getting into areas that we weren't supposed to be in, getting connected to networks that weren't supposed to be live, and getting to data that just somebody off the street shouldn't be getting to. And that's kind of what the exercise is all about.
So without protecting the innocent, without naming any names, what was some of the tactics that you see the most useful where people just open the door, let you in? Like what?
Confidence, just being confident. I mean, that really was, it was hard to get into the smaller bank branches because they were small. Most eyes were trained on you as soon as you walked in. But the back office, the admin buildings, they were much easier to get into. And then just having confidence, walking in like you were supposed to be there, doing some recon ahead of time, having some names of name dropping you could use, but just acting like you're supposed to be there. And you know, and it works more often than not.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. They say you can upgrade your system, but it's not that easy to upgrade the user. So I guess it's always humans will always be
Right.
maybe some of the weaker links for better or worse.
Well, and it's playing on people's desire to be nice, right? I mean, that's most humans want to be helpful, and so yeah, in that kind of environment, you have to train people to, while be courteous, still question and be skeptical. And most people are not trained that way or don't operate that way. They want to be helpful, and so you kind of play on that, and usually you can get folks to do something for you.
Certainly. Well, especially if reception is the first line of defense, they're there to help, right? So if as a pen tester, if you take advantage of that,
it works usually.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's interesting. I've been reading a book about by I think Kevin Mitnick. He was like the OG of
right.
hackers and pen testers, I guess, and some crazy stories. So I'm always fascinated about social engineering in general and like the physical aspect of it as well. But I actually met him at RSA. He I think he was doing a book signing. He's
of course. Yeah. Got a lot of fame. Got a lot of good stories too.
Yeah. Well, he did it before computers. I think he was just hacking phone companies because he wanted to place free calls. Yeah, fascinating. So I think if you mentioned you've been at it for like 25 years, I think the cybersecurity industry has changed. There's so much money going into funding startups. There are so many more people with information security, cybersecurity in the title. And I think as a result, a lot more maybe somewhat junior professionals in tech space, whether it's IT in general, are looking over at cybersecurity and thinking of making this career transition. Even maybe earlier than that, someone who's still in college or whatnot. So for those who are earlier on that path, what will be some of your advice from your experience, your vantage point? What are 2 or 3 things that you think people should over-index and really pay attention to?
That's a good question. A lot of folks are interested in cybersecurity, which is great. We have a definite need for professionals to join the ranks. In fact, somebody new to my team, we just brought over from the IT infrastructure, network infrastructure side. So always looking to bring folks into this world and help them down this path. There's a lot of things that can be done. There's a lot of like for students, as an example, that are interested. A lot of new programs in the university level are being started. In fact, I'll be an adjunct instructor coming up in the fall for a local university, Belmont University, that's starting their non-degree cyber program. A lot of 2-year colleges, universities have programs. Students are interested, whether they're just coming out of high school or wanting to transition. And I would say another thing that I have found extremely useful in my career development is professional associations, as well as certifications. I'll kind of get to that in a minute, but associations, I'm a member of ISACA and a member of ISSA. And it really depends on your geography, what association is more prevalent in your specific area. Sometimes it's an ISC squared association or Cloud Security Alliance. We also have CSA, chapter that started up here not too long ago. But find a local community that you can be a part of. And there's going to be opportunities to grow in your profession. And maybe even if you're not in the industry, they're going to have ways for you to get exposure to those that are in the industry, exposure to training programs, conferences. Part of ISSA Middle Tennessee, we have an annual conference. And that's coming up in September. And we have a number of universities that bring their students, both for volunteering to help us put on the conference, but also just to understand what's happening in the industry and where their path may be after they graduate. So I definitely would recommend getting involved in local associations if you have some in the area to find a path into security. And you get exposure to, like I said, ISACA and ISSA. ISACA's kind of got the IT audit, IT risk bend. ISSA is more, cyber technical focused. So there's a lot of different ways to get into the industry. What excites you? What are you good at? What do you like? You find exposure in those associations. And then I would also say start with some certifications. So if you're in IT infrastructure or some other technical capacity, start looking at some of the entry level certifications or certificates. ISACA has a cybersecurity fundamentals. ISC Squared has a big initiative right now for the CC certificate. I think it's certified in cybersecurity. CompTIA has the Security Plus, which is a fantastic certification. In fact, when I was one of the roles I had previously was running a managed service provider, and we weren't necessarily specifically focused on security, but we had all of our technicians that were general IT technicians take the Security Plus, just so that foundational knowledge. So it's a great place to start, as well as exploring some of the entry-level CompTIA certs as well. So associations, certifications, and then look at your local colleges and universities and see what programs they have as well.
Certainly makes a lot of sense. I think kind of the red line through this is I think networking is a big part of anyone's career, I guess, and getting connected to people. Well, not only for job opportunities, but also understanding, finding your role models. Just finding people like, I want to be like that person and when I'm that age, or I want to be at that stage of my career when I'm, 25, 30, 35, 40, et cetera, whatever that range is, right? So I think it's certainly important to have someone in front of you who can emulate and ask for advice when need be. So it certainly makes a lot of sense. Switching gears.
Sorry, to that point real quick, Misha. There are organizations now, and they've been around for a while, but things like Cyversity or other mentorship type organizations. If you are looking to get into cybersecurity or progress your career, look for a program that'll offer mentors. And I just did that for the last 6 months with somebody that was based in New Zealand. So she was already in security, but she was kind of looking for some mentorship to take the next step. That was a fun experience for me, just to get a different vantage point of somebody working in cyber in New Zealand when I'm sitting here in Nashville, Tennessee. So it was fun on my part as well. But folks that want to kind of look at what the next thing is for them in cyber, or just get into the organization, can look for mentorship opportunities as well.
Certainly makes a lot of sense. Well, cybersecurity is changing so fast. It seems like every other day there's a new exploit or new angle. There's a new patch. I think it's just it feels like it's the velocity of technological change is just increasing as we go, right? So, I remember the days when internet was young, and now it's such a big part of our lives. And I think as a result, the bigger the footprint technology has in our lives, as I guess as people, both on personal level, family level, company, country, it's really, we're a lot more dependent on making sure the data is secure, that systems run. And I think every now and then there's kind of a new scare, new theme that's coming on that just captures everyone's attention. In your view, what are the top 2-3 challenges that are facing CISOs these days? Whether it's a threat, attack vector technology that's unproven. What do you think scares people the most these days?
That's a good question, and I think there's always going to be something new, right? And so, how do you, for example, the whole Chat GPT, right, and the AI LLMs? How are criminals going to be leveraging that? And there's examples of that already. There's examples of how AI is being leveraged for nefarious purposes, writing malware, writing phishing emails. So that's the new thing right now. I still think that regardless of what the new thing is, there's always one of the challenges for security leaders is not leading with, the world is ending, the sky is falling. We have this new thing that we now have to pay attention to, and attempting to kind of lead with that FUD factor. So I tend to take a different approach when, in leading security programs. I still don't think we do the basics really well. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, there's all this new stuff to pay attention to, but we still need to do the basics. We still need to patch appropriately, right? And so finding other security leaders that have a fantastic patch and vulnerability management program, how do we emulate that? How do we make sure that we are deploying patches on a regular cadence and that are actually getting out there? How are we working with our counterparts in IT to make sure that the patches are being tested and deployed across all the platforms, the endpoints, the servers, cloud infrastructure, applications, network infrastructure, all of it, right? So it's a basic thing that we still struggle with as an industry to do well. So I'm going to point back to some of the basics. How about password management? Okay, so password management has changed. There's some newer recommendations from NIST and Microsoft about length and complexity and MFA and not changing so often. Okay, let's go back to basic password management. What does a good password management policy look like, and how does that effectively get deployed across your organization? Mm-hmm. That's another basic. And then I think of another basic such as administrative rights. Are we properly controlling how we leverage admin rights across organization for our development group, for our admins, for our executive team, for our frontline workers? That's still a challenge that security leaders grapple with today. So yes, a lot of new stuff. I'm going to point back to the basics. Let's get the foundation correct as we start and mature these security programs. And then we can worry about the new technologies, the new stuff that's coming our way. But I want to start with a firm foundation.
Makes sense, and I think actually I heard this idea kind of in the past when people are saying, "Look, it's always a moving target. It's never going to be perfect, but the most important thing you can do is not to look like an easy target, not to look like a low-hanging fruit for an attacker."
Right. Absolutely.
And there is so much, to your point, there was so much kind of basic security, whether it's password management or training or some patches. It's really you don't want to appear like as an easy target, so that I'm sure open ports are being pinged like multiple thousands of times a day. There is always attackers out there, but if you're too hard of a nut to crack, they'll move on. They will move on to someone who will appear as an easy target. So at the very least, you don't need to be you don't need to run faster than the bear. You just need to run faster than the guy next to you, right? So
right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, just make it hard enough for them to move on to somebody else, right? I mean, if somebody wants to get into an organization or a technology that you're running and they want to get in bad enough, they're going to, but you put up enough barriers and maybe it's enough to where they decide to move on and go pester somebody else.
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense. So I guess it's an interesting question because from what I understand, your company provides services to portfolio companies of this investment vehicle that's in healthcare specific. But So you kind of sit on both sides, right? So on the one hand, you as a CISO have, I know, cybersecurity vendors for whom you're a client, but you also have a kind of a client relationship with a portfolio company. So it's a little bit of both, which I think is very unique and fairly interesting. I'm always curious about the relationship that cybersecurity executives have with cybersecurity vendors, and I think it sounds like you're almost sitting on both chairs. It'll be even more interesting from you. I know a lot of times it's someone can it's not always an easy relationship, and I think it comes from the fact that sometimes vendors have fairly aggressive targets. Their salespeople are incentivized to bring in deals, so they're incessantly calling, emailing, and I guess on the flip side, some vendors take a little bit of a longer term approach, and they're focused on delivering value and building a relationship and giving without asking, really. So, and as I mentioned, you probably having kind of exposure to both worlds. What are some of the examples of kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly? What, again, with protecting the innocent, what's some of the ways vendors really played this long game, and where you were impressed? And on the flip side, what are some of the pet peeves that you think vendors should stop doing?
Boy, that's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, you mentioned it. It's the relationship. It is being in it for the long term. So I can think of several examples of vendors and value-added reseller organizations really showing investment in the relationship and not just being in it for the sale. And you can usually tell right away when somebody is just wanting to hit a quota, and they're going to be pretty aggressive about that, from a financial standpoint. So my recommendation, and in past lives, I've been in a business development capacity, running a managed service provider and trying to bring on new clients. I'm thankful I don't have that responsibility today, but I have had similar responsibilities in the past, such as that. And it's all about the relationship. I mean, similar to what we talked about previously in the networking, right? As an industry professional, as you're trying to get in, it's about relationships, about networking. Same thing applies here. It's about relationships. And I don't have a lot of patience for people that are just looking to get something quick and be in and done and then move on, and I don't hear from them again. Mm-hmm. So I tend to look for that and understand that, get to know somebody, and just make sure that I feel like there's going to be value in the relationship both ways, right? And I do sit in a somewhat unique position, like you mentioned, right, where I've got quote unquote clients, even though they're started by the parent company, and we don't have to go source clients. They all come from the healthcare investment firm. But I manage their programs on their behalf. And so I interface with security vendors, and we attempt to bring in the right solution set for one or more of those portfolio companies. Mm-hmm. And in this specific scenario, I'm looking for partners that know our environment. We do have a unique environment. It's not like everybody else. We have multiple portfolio companies. The technologies and services we use have to be able to operate that way. And somewhat unique to us is, I mean, I've had multiple conversations like this. Like, we want to bring this in for 5 companies, and we want, as each company matures, we want them to be able to take that tech stack, that solution, whatever it is we're bringing in, and use it right after they leave our support. So that takes, at times, unique contract negotiations, unique technology setup, we're building a program to lose clients, essentially. So it's sort of a reverse model of a managed service provider, right? We're bringing up a client, and then we want to lose them because that means they're actually successful and they're leaving. But from a technology standpoint, that creates some challenges. So having that conversation up front, this is our environment. I really need you to understand, security vendor, I need you to understand what this looks like. It means that when company A is ready to go, I want them to take this with them. Let's make sure that we set that up on the front end so they can actually do that. So again, listening, and it's all about relationships and investing in those relationships and understanding how that technology is going to impact those organizations.
Certainly. It's almost like, it sounds like those portfolio companies, you help them hatch, but you want them to fly out of the nest and fly on their own without.
Exactly. Yeah. And when they're ready to fly, we don't want to just give them nothing. We want to let them take everything with them as much as possible so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel when they're ready to go.
For sure. Well, Donna, I know we're kind of up on time a little bit. Just, I guess, last question. Yep. You're probably, as you mentioned, you're part of various organizations, professional and maybe more of a kind of social associations for cybersecurity executives. At Affinia, we always look at suggestions and advice. Maybe what are some of the ways we can improve? What are some of the things that, in your view, we should do? Or if we do something that's redundant or annoying, let us know as well so that we can stop. So what would be your recommendation in terms of?
I think, well, for one, keep doing what you're doing. I find a lot of value in the Slack channel, being able to communicate with other security leaders and learn from them. So I've created locally in the Nashville, Tennessee area, a pretty good network, which is fantastic, right? But what Affinia offers is the ability to do some of that same thing, but virtually. With leaders across the country and the world, and be able to learn and share best practices, or even be able to reach into an organization. I found that, like, for example, one of the portfolio companies is going to do business with XYZ company. I'm going to go, okay, maybe I can find a security leader in that company just to make the connection. As a partner, I'm going to go research in Slack. Okay, they're a part of this community. Great. I can just reach out and say, hey, looking like our companies are going to work together. Just wanted to make the connection, know that we're both here. And in case something comes up, we have a quick way to reach out to each other. So keep building that community as far and wide as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Don, where can people find you? What's the best way to connect?
Most active on LinkedIn. So it's just Don Baham, LinkedIn/in/Don Baham. Quick to find. Should be easy to find if you search on there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Misha. All right.